Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this session we are going to see Spring Boot framework for connecting to MySQL database. For that you need to have the following dependencies: Spring Web for embedded server and RESTful API, JPA for Hibernate Java entity classes, Lombok which is a productivity tool, and MySQL driver for establishing a connection between your application to database. I have downloaded the skeleton project from the Spring Initializr and I have opened that project into my IDE. So basically you will be having only this database application. Now I have added a couple of classes that is required for um, pointing to database. Okay. So first you need to have this controller class. So what I have done, I have just added 4 new methods. Okay. Get mapping for finding and for getting the details uh, from that table. Add endpoint, which is for adding new records, update for any changes that comes, we have to update to that particular user, and delete. With that I'm using that ID so that I can delete one by one. Okay. So once you create the REST controller component, you need to have a service class. Okay. Component for REST controller act as a first entry point for your Spring Boot application. Like the end user, when he is or whoever is going to make that request, it is going to come to this particular endpoint, right? And after that you need to have some business logic, so that can be written inside this service component. So we are going to have a separate class for that. Okay. So you can see for get all, I'm going to use a repository. I will show you here. So it's an interface class which is extends the JPA repository of this particularly user class. So user is nothing but a table. I have defined here as at the rate of entity, which means a Java persistence API that is doing a mapping between your database tables and the Java Pojo classes. I can quickly show you what database I have in my local. So I have database tutorial. Inside that I have only one table. Okay, user, right? As of now I don't have any records here. So the same I have added here in application properties. As you can see, the database configuration, tutorial database I'm using, the credentials, this is the JDBC driver, and these are all like the JPA configuration. So this user table, I have ID, name, gender, email ID. So the same I have done here. Only for ID, I have defined the annotation at the rate of ID. For unique identity, I'm using generated value as an identity. Okay. And what is this getter and setter? So if you open this particular thing, you can see I'm using this Lombok feature. I told you it's a productivity tool. You don't need to type everything like this: private, integer, get ID, then return me this dot ID. Okay. And similarly I have to do setter method, right? So in old approaches we were doing that for every variable we have defined within the DTO classes or within the entity classes. Now those things not required, you just need to define getter and setter, so that will take care of it. Okay. So this is the entity class. And if you see, I'm not using any customized query or anything here, so it's an empty interface. But I can use all the existing functionalities of JPA repository. So once you come here, when the controller calls this, okay, first we will go here, get all users. So I will reach end this endpoint. Okay, let me start this application and quickly I can show you what is going on. Okay. So this application is up and running. Okay. Now let me go back to Postman. I'm using Postman for performing all these operations. Okay. So you can see localhost 8080. This application is running on 8080, and then we have this find all. So it will reach this endpoint, and from here I'm gonna trigger. You see, I don't have anything. It's an empty array, which means the table doesn't have anything. So let's add it something new. So I have 8080 add, and I am giving this post mapping. So this will map here, and in the request I have one param called user details, which is nothing but this ID, name, gender, email ID. Similarly, we have that detail here in the body. So you need to pass, okay. And when you submit the send request, you see I have a new record created with this ID because I haven't passed any ID, so it will be auto generated. There is no mapping here. So basically what it does, it will call the service class. From there we have this add method. You can see I'm just initializing that entity class. I'm setting those all the parameters which I have got it from the request, and then using repositories dot save means it will try to save it into your database. Okay, so once we have saved that, now let's go back to that get method. Now we have this one record into this table, right? Now let me pull that. You see one record I'm getting it, which is again coming from this repository. Find out. Okay, so similarly let me add one more record. Let's verify a new update record. So I have now two records. Let me refresh that. You will see two records, both are same records. So now I have one more API, okay, where you need to pass the ID, because that ID will be identified in the application. How? So when you go back to the controller class, let's go to update function now. Same request body I do have. I'm gonna call this method here. The last time when I did add, I was just creating a new of user, which means the new ID will be automatically generated. But for update, I'm taking that ID from this parameter. I'm trying to find if that ID is exist. I'm gonna update that. If it is not there, I'm gonna return it null. Okay, so let me show you. I don't have any record with ID 3. If I send 3, I don't say anything. You can put a message here as well. So if I go and update 2, you see I have find the details in the database and I was able to save it. Now if you go back to get API, earlier it was both Abdul Abdul. If I try to refresh, you see one request is Abdul, another request is different. So similarly, we have one more endpoint, delete mapping, for deleting those entries. So why do we have these different mappings, get mapping, post mapping, put mapping, delete mapping? So this is to segregate the, the database transaction, right? Get means you have to get all the elements, all the details or particular records, so which can be called directly from the browser. It doesn't need to have params as a request body. But when it comes to these three, we can have request body as well as param values. Okay, so we have used this request body, add, update and delete, right? So in delete, what I did, I am using path variable. We don't see anything here like path variable, right? So I have given ID so that I am mapping it here. So if you see that request, you see here I have delete. After that I'm giving that ID in the URL itself. So this value automatically will be mapped to this variable, and then it will go to again service class. There I am checking if this record found, you delete. If it is not there, you put a message. So still we don't have that record 3, right? I will trigger that. You see, fail to delete. And if I put 2, it's gonna look up and it got deleted. So if I'm gonna check in database right away, I see I have only one record. Similarly, we'll check here. Here also it is one record. So like this, you can have database connectivity from your application to database using Spring. And if you validate everything, then that time you set the details into that entity classes. Either it can be add operation or update operation. After that, you call that particular repository class to perform save or update operation. So I hope this is clear, and this is the required property details for database configuration, and how this configuration is handled, right? So we have this Spring Boot application, right? So it has enable auto configuration, right? So this annotation automatically picks up the required values for the required dependencies. So we have already defined here, I'm going to use MySQL connector, I'm going to use Spring Boot GPA. So these things needed these values, so it's going to look up into application properties. From there it will map and it will use it. Okay, I hope it's clear for all of you. Thank you.